Hey, well, it's great to see everybody. Welcome to Real Life Church. Really glad you are here. And I want to welcome everybody at all of our locations, whether you're in Canyon Country watching online or here in Valencia, inside or outside, in the lobby, in Common Grounds, over in the family room. We're thrilled that you are here. And we are excited about week 2 of Better Together. And we're talking about how so many things in our world divide us. When you think about all the things we experience and all the ways we define ourselves, we get kind of in a more narrow kind of niche in life as to where we are. I mean, think about the things that divide us. We have our political views, we have our sports allegiances, we have our social media rants, we have age, race, and gender, and space and time, personalities, temperaments, anger styles, workout styles, vegan, vegetarian, pecatarian, bacontarian, whatever you choose to be. I prefer the latter of them all. Whatever you are, it all kind of defines us, and we all kind of lead with that, right? Well, this is who I am, this is who I am, and it kind of divides us and divides us and divides us till one day we wake up and we realize we're incredibly lonely. In fact, in our country today, we are probably, we have more ways to connect, we have more technology to connect, and yet we are more divided, and we are more lonely, and we're more anxious, and we're more depressed than any time in human history. In fact, recently I read in Time magazine that the United Kingdom did a survey, and they discovered that one of the biggest problems that their people are struggling with is loneliness. And so they actually appointed a minister of loneliness to their government, someone to deal with the loneliness problem. I mean, the real issue is everything divides us, and could it possibly be that a better version of me includes we? Could it be that we truly are better together? What if life could be done better together? Now, the moment I say that, the moment you hear that song you just heard, there's something inside of you and something inside of me that just kind of nods. Of course, absolutely. We're better together. I mean, we all tear up when we see the commercials of people helping each other out. We all love to hear the Olympic stories going on right now of people that are, working as a team. We all get misty-eyed about the Jamaican bobsled team, all the kind of stuff that a lot of us love and appreciate because we understand that we're better together. But here's the problem. Can I just share a secret that I think you would agree with? Sometimes people drive us crazy. You know what I'm talking about? And I even mean the people that you love, right? I mean, everything will be good in here, and then you're going to walk out and get in the car, and your husband's driving is going to drive you insane. And you're going to let him know that. Lovingly, of course. You're going to see your kids at the end of the day, and you're going to think, I love you, but I can't wait till you go to bed. Okay? When is bedtime? Can we move that up? I mean, that'd be great, all right? I mean, you're gonna deal with people in your life, like maybe even your wife, and she'll start into a story, and halfway through you'll think, I don't know what we're talking about. But this has lasted forever. There's something in us that we have these moments where we think, these people are driving me crazy. Maybe for you, you have aging parents, and you're thinking, I cannot explain Facebook one more time. I just can't do it. Maybe you have neighbors that just drive you crazy because they play loud music late at night, or because they don't put their dumpsters up, or whatever it is. Maybe it's an issue of somebody at work that drives you crazy. In fact, just so we're kind of all on the same page, see if you happen to work with somebody like this. Take a look at this.
Our final actual cost for this year.
Okay.
As you can see, we did pretty well. So.
Yes, I can see that we did indeed. Why don't you explain this to me like I am an 8-year-old?
All right, well, this is the overall budget for this fiscal year along the x-axis.
Yes.
Right there.
There's the x-axis.
You can see clearly on this page that we have a surplus of $4,300.
Okay.
But we have to spend that by the end of the day, or it will be deducted from next year's budget.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
Your mommy and daddy give you $10 to open up a lemonade stand. So you go out and you buy cups and you buy lemons and you buy sugar. And now you find out that it only costs you $9.
Oh.
So you have an extra $1.
Yeah.
So you can give that $1 back to mommy and daddy. But guess what? Next summer,
I'll be 6.
and you ask them for money, they're going to give you $9. because that's what they think it costs to run the stand. So what you want to do is spend that dollar on something now so that your parents think that it costs $10 to run the lemonade stand.
So the dollar's a surplus. This is a surplus.
We have to spend that $4,300 by the end of the day, or it'll be deducted from next year's budget.
Woo.
We should spend this money on a new copier, which we desperately need.
Okay, break it down in terms of, okay. I think I'm getting you.
Maybe you work with somebody like that. I hope my staff is not nodding along. There are people that we deal with that we think, goodness, you just make life difficult. I mean, there's just those moments, right? I think about a time I went into a coffee shop that's local, and I won't mention the name, but it's not Undergrounds, which is where everybody should go. Anyway, I went in there, and it's near closing time, but I wanted a cup of coffee, and I thought, surely I can get in there. There's 5 minutes before closing. I can get a cup of coffee before they close up. And I walk in there, and the guy is literally holding the big canister of coffee. He's holding it over there by the sink. And I said, hey, can I get a cup of coffee? And he says, I'm sorry, but we're all out, and dumps it into the sink. I say, seriously? Yep, just ran out. Is that right? Well, thank you very much. You know, people are crazy sometimes, right? The people are just idiots sometimes. Is that what you think sometimes? I know I've thought that sometimes. And I've expressed that with people in my family because, as I share in the book, and maybe you've heard this story, we were in the drive-thru line at Wendy's one time, and we're ordering, and my kids are pretty young in the back seat, and what do they want? They want nuggets. Okay, we want nuggets. Chicken sandwich? No, we want nuggets. Chicken sandwich? No, we want nuggets. And my youngest daughter, Sydney, yells out, way to go, genius! In that moment, I'm thinking, I don't know whether to high-five you or to punish you, okay? Because I'm thinking it, but I'm not going to say it, right? You just don't say that. But we've all had those moments. We've all had those moments we look around us and we think, why? Sure, I believe we're better together, but why would I want to do life with you people? Because people are drama and life is crazy. Why mix the two? So this whole idea of better together, if we're really going to get into this, we've got to deal with this issue of what do we do when we're surrounded by people that we think are crazy, that we think, dare I say it, are idiots. How do we handle it? First thing you got to know is what drives you crazy. Let's talk about a few options. What are the types of people that bug you? Let's just get it out there in the open. I'm going to give you some things. I'm going to describe it, and then you vote for it, okay? There's the incessant talker. This is the person that doesn't know how to end a sentence. The sentence just runs into another sentence, and it just keeps going, and it keeps going. And even if they ask a question, they just answer it for you. And they just keep going and going and going. And this is cool if you're on the phone because you can put it on speaker and do other stuff at the same time, but it's not if you're face to face and you're trying to get out of there. Okay, by show of applause, how many of you, this is the person that drives you crazy? Let's hear it. Okay, very good. Number two, this is the close talker. All right, this is a person that does not honor the hula hoop of space. All right, that's what we all have to have, and they walk right into it, and you see them in the lobby because there's somebody doing a dance with them, walking back, and it's like this waltz, coming closer. I was at a church not long ago, and a guy came up to me and shook my hand, and as he did it, he pulled me close and rubbed my hand against his side, and I thought, that's uncomfortable. Now just stop it, all right? I got to go get Purell and therapy and the whole thing. How many of you, the close talker drives you crazy, okay? Very good, all right? And the rest of you are close talkers. All right, here's the third one. The third one is the silent starer. They don't really speak. They just look at you from across the room. And they just stare can't you tell when somebody's staring at you and you look over and it's just weird, it's kind of creepy, and you think, aren't you from Poltergeist or something? And it just really bugs you. And they don't ever say anything, they just stare at you. Okay, how many of you, it's the silent starer? Let me hear you. Okay, very good. All right, and then number 4, this is the annoyer. All right, this is a person, they just annoy you, and they may not even know it. All right, God bless them. God bless them. It's your kids, incessant questions. It's your husband's odor. It's the way your friend eats. It's the way your boss cleans his teeth with a straw. It's whatever. But it's somebody that just annoys you with something. How many of it, that's it for you? Let's just clap. See? And then there's one final one, and this is the drama queen, okay? And this is not just female. Okay, hang on, all right. It's male or female, but this is the person that everything that's happened to you, something worse has happened to them, right? You come into the room and you go, oh, I ran out of gas today. Oh, I ran out of gas too, then my car exploded. Okay, so It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as we go, right? So how many of you, this is your person, all right? Wasn't that therapeutic? I mean, just to admit it, just to own it, that's the person that drives me crazy. And let's be honest, we're one of those. And we're somebody's you drive me crazy. And we're somebody's reason we don't think we're better together. And these are the people that keep us out of community because we look at other people and we think, yeah, I like it like in a movie, but I don't want to live it. Because it's painful and it's awkward. And I got to give up some preferences and I got to put up with some nonsense because I don't like that. So how do we do this? How do we do better together? Now, here's what's fascinating. When you read the biographies of Jesus, written by eyewitnesses, Matthew and John, who were there and lived it, and Luke and Mark, who interviewed eyewitnesses, and you listen to their stories about Jesus, if there was anybody who could have said, I'm surrounded by idiots, it's Jesus. Because first of all, he's the Son of God. Everybody is less than him, right? But second of all, because he surrounded himself with people that constantly kept getting in the way of themselves and doing crazy things. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, he was God. He could put up with it. He, loves everybody. He was perfect. But here's what I'm driving at. If there was anybody who had the right to look down at somebody else, if there was anybody who had the right to say, I don't need community because I'm the Son of God and you all are crazy, it was Jesus. If there was anybody who had the right to look at people and go, you're an idiot and you're wasting my time, it was Jesus. But Jesus not only doesn't do that, he actually models for us how to engage in community, even with people that drive you crazy. Let me give you 3 examples of people that just did ridiculous things around Jesus. Here's Exhibit A. Jesus has just received news that his cousin, John the Baptist, has been killed. And he is so overwhelmed with grief, which is just a side note, aren't you glad to know that Jesus experienced that? He was not immune to grief that he suffered on behalf of the loss of somebody that he loved. And he was so overwhelmed with this grief, he just tells everybody, because he's surrounded by the disciples and crowds of people wanting to be healed and wanting to hear from him, and he goes, I just need a time out. And he gets in a boat, and he just goes away. Look what the text tells us. When Jesus heard what happened, John the Baptist had been beheaded. He withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. And this is just going out into the Sea of Galilee and just being alone for a little bit, maybe going over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And here's what's interesting. If there's anybody who should have protected him, it would have been the disciples. But look what happens. Hearing of this, the crowds, they followed him on foot from the town. So they just start walking around the Sea of Galilee till they get to where he's going to land, and they're waiting on him there. If there's anybody who should have stepped up and said, guys, give him a little bit of space, okay? His cousin just was killed. It's the disciples. But they don't do that at all. And so when Jesus gets to his solitary place to grieve, this is what happens. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he couldn't help himself. He had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. And here's what's so interesting about this. Jesus doesn't disengage and say, can you all just give me some space here? Can you all just leave me alone for a little bit? He doesn't look at the disciples and go, you couldn't give me a couple hours? But instead, look what the disciples do next. As evening approached, the disciples came to him with a problem. Don't you love that? You come home after a long day and your kids start bringing you problems. Dad, will you fix this? Dad, what do I do about this? Mom, how do you fix this? Mom, how do you got this paper I got to turn in? And here come his disciples. This is a remote place. It's already getting late. You need to send these crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. They're giving Jesus some orders here. I love that. In other words, there are so many people around there. In fact, we find out there's like 5,000 people. And they only counted the men back then. So there's probably more like 15,000 people. And look at what Jesus says to them. He says, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. Isn't this fascinating? Don't miss this. Jesus has compassion to the crowds, but he gives tasks to the disciples. And they do just like what our kids do. They give us a problem back. Look what they say. We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. What they fail to tell him is we just swipe this from a kid's lunch, and here's all we've got, right? And Jesus is looking at this thinking, another problem? Are you guys kidding me? And so this is what Jesus does. Bring them here to me. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, he broke the loaves, then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate, all 15,000 of them. And the disciples picked up leftovers, 12 basketfuls of broken pieces. And the number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Now here's what's incredible about this. Not only did the disciples not protect him from the crowds, not only did they present him with problems, not only did they have a lack of faith, but just a few days after this, they'll have a crowd of 4,000, and they'll go to Jesus and go, how are we going to feed them? He just fed them. And now they've got a new crowd of 4,000 people, and Jesus says, well, what do you think we ought to do? And he said, I don't know, we got 7 loaves of bread. And Jesus has got to be thinking, wow, I had 5 loaves with 5,000, and now 7 loaves with 4,000. This is even easier, right? And they don't even figure it out. They don't even have belief. And you would think, based upon this miracle, they would be expecting the next miracle, but they don't even get it. And if there's anybody who could have stepped up and said, you all are fools. Do you not see what's going on here? It was Jesus. But he didn't do it. Let me give you exhibit B. Later on in Jesus' ministry, he's fed 5,000. He's fed 4,000. He's cast demons out of kids. He's brought people back from the dead. He's done incredible things. And then while they're walking down the road one day, he overhears them arguing. What are they arguing about? Which one of us is the greatest? Are you kidding me? That'd be like me arguing with Michael Jordan. Which one of us is the greatest basketball player, right? And the answer is Magic Johnson. That's the answer for any of those questions, right? I mean, this is a ridiculous question. And this is very similar to another time when James and John's mom shows up and says to Jesus, I want these 2 to sit by you, by your throne. It's like, mom has come to football practice and said, my kid's a quarterback, and that's what he's going to play. I mean, these people around him are constantly arguing about who's greater, who's better, who's greater. And look at what it said here. It comes up again. A dispute arose among them as to which of them considered to be the greatest. This is right after Jesus washed their feet. And this is right before Jesus is crucified. If there's any moment Jesus could have stood up and said, I cannot believe I have invested years of my life and ministry with you. But he doesn't. And then there's exhibit C. This guy that's around them all the time, this guy by the name of Peter. And we kind of love Peter if you've read any of his stories, because he's kind of a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. He just does whatever he's thinking of and always puts his foot in his mouth. And one day he says something great. He says, Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God. And Jesus says, I'm going to build my church on you. And then the next day Jesus is talking about how he's going to have to die. And Peter pulls him aside and begins to rebuke him, saying, you can't say that. You're not going to die. And you know what Jesus says to him? Get behind me, Satan. Wow. That's as close to calling someone an idiot as Jesus has ever done. And then Peter continues. And then one day they're up on this mountainside, and Jesus is like enthroned in glory from God. It's this really weird yet cool story where he's got this light shone down around him, and Moses and Elijah show up, which had to be really bizarre to Peter, James, and John who were watching all this. And Peter's got this great idea. I know what I'll do. I'll build little houses for all 3 of them so they can all live here happily ever after. And in the middle of that crazy sentence, look what happens here. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, this is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. You know what I love about this? God interrupts Peter. In other words, what you're saying is too stupid to finish, okay? So just stop it, because this is my son. That's what matters most. It's almost like, God is saying, okay, Jesus, if you're not going to say it, I'm going to say it, because this is ridiculous. If there's anybody who could have stepped up and said, you all aren't worth my time, it was Jesus. And then Peter goes out from there, And he denies that he even knows Jesus before Jesus is crucified. And Jesus has got to think, is this really the rock on which I want to build my church? Here's what's fascinating. While you and I are surrounded by people who we think are not worth our time, Jesus has it much worse than you and I. And yet, he continued to trust them, to lead them, and even give them opportunities to represent him. It's almost as if he enjoyed them. How could they have possibly been of any benefit to him? How could they have even given him anything other than just heartburn, or maybe a few laughs? But here's what's so true about Jesus, and that is Jesus always accepts as is, not as they should be. There's something about Jesus that continues to value we over me. I mean, think about the calling of these disciples. Can I just run through a few of them for you? There's Peter and his brother Andrew. And these guys keep making mistakes along the way. There's James and John, who are nicknamed the sons of thunder. They have an anger problem. There's Simon, a zealot, who literally kills people for political reasons. There's Bartholomew, who was also named Nathaniel, who made fun of Jesus' hometown, and Jesus heard him. There is Matthew, who was a tax collector, who used to rob these other disciples of their taxes for his own gain. And then there's, of course, Judas, who eventually betrays Jesus. This is the island of misfit toys, and Jesus is right there among them, and he never looks at them and says, "You all aren't worth my time." In fact, he says, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I have a difficult time having other people join me in projects. I like to just do it myself. I have found that most guys are like this. We like to do it ourselves, and then when it fails, we blame it on all those who didn't help us. That's kind of our MO. That's what we do, right? And because I like to operate on my own, there were times when my kids were younger and they were involved with math homework and all that. They'd come up to me and they'd go, "Dad, would you help me with this math homework?" And I'd see it, and I'd immediately think this is so easy, and I'd want to do it all on my own. And just, yeah, here's what you do, and run with it. But then eventually they got old enough where I couldn't keep up with their math, and after third grade, I said, "You know what? You're on your own." But now, why are we not supposed to do that? Because there's value in us learning together. And I want to go back to that phrase that we read about when they were feeding the 5,000. Look at what Jesus says to these guys. They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. Here's what we're learning from Jesus here. And that is the way that you deal with the difficult people in your life, the way that you deal with the pressure on you to get everything done, and you know you need others in your life, but you just don't trust them. This is what Jesus models for us and how to be better together. Compassion to those far from you, but responsibility to those close to you. We often flip these. We give responsibility to those we don't even know, and then we are upset when they let us down. And then we give compassion to those closest to us, and then we're upset when they don't learn how to do it for themselves. But Jesus does just the opposite. And he gives compassion to those that are far from him, that desperately need his care. But then those who are closest to him, he gives them responsibility. Now, here's what I want us to think about for just a second. For those of you that are overwhelmed with life, and you are so individualized in your work and all your stuff you've got to do at home and all the things you're trying to accomplish, could it be that you could be better together by sharing some responsibility? By taking some time this week to write down all the things you feel like you've got to do and just giving some of those things away, even if those people that you somewhat trust don't do it as good as you would have. Wouldn't your life be a little bit easier if you shared the load and you gave some responsibility, some other people in your home, other people in your life, and said, I'm not going to be a superhero. I'm not going to do this all on my own. I'm going to share this responsibility. If Jesus can do it, so can you. And what about for some of us that constantly keep people at arm's length because all we see are their faults? All we see are the ways that they don't do things that we would want them to be done. All we see are the annoying habits and all the things they do wrong and how I don't want that person in my life and I'm not joining a life group because there'll be people in there that aren't like me and they don't think like I do and they don't vote like I do and they don't believe what I do. Could it be what you need to extend to them is compassion? And instead of mentally keeping that little list of the things I don't like about you, you begin to mentally keep a list of the things I appreciate about you, even if it's not what you would have done yourself. And you give compassion to those that are far from you, and you give responsibility to those that are close to you. And you begin to lighten this load and expand your circle and discover what it means to be better together. Some of you right now are overwhelmed with life. You're overwhelmed with loneliness because you have put yourself into a box where it is all up to you. Nobody gets you, nobody understands you, and you don't like anyone. And there's a safety in that because nobody will hurt you. But friends, that's not the abundant life that Jesus came to give, and that's not the kind of life that Jesus models. Jesus, the Son of God, who could have done everything on his own, trusts the ministry to idiots like you and like me. And he says, you guys take it from here. Compassion to those far and responsibility to those close. All through this series, we're going to be giving you some opportunities for you to take a next step in being better together. And I'm going to give you 3 right now. You don't have to do all 3. You shouldn't do all 3, but you should do one of them. 3 options to take a step towards together rather than being alone. Here's the first one. And this is relatively new around here, but it's simply called Arise. And it is a ministry that is being sponsored by a local gym, Ekata Gym, which has some of our people from real life that run the place and attend there. They have created a separate class that combines not only Bible study and prayer, but also mindfulness and just physical fitness. And it is an incredible course over several weeks that's kind of a next step for some people that are ready to put those 2 things together. If you're interested in that, rlc.is/arise will help you sign up for that and find out more information. For those of you interested in being better together health-wise and spirituality, this is a way to do it. Another great way to be better together is to serve together. And some of you have heard us talk about serving before, and you think, I don't want to do that because the moment I say yes, I'm stuck till Jesus returns. What if you just did it for Easter? Just for Easter. It's coming up. We're going to do this over a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We need a lot of volunteers to help out. You can sign up for serving, and in doing so, you will meet other people. It will take you out of your comfort zone, and you will connect with others and find your better together. rlc.is/Easter vol for Easter volunteering. But then there's a final one, and some of you have never done this before, and that is to go through First Step. We do this the first Sunday of every month, and it's a lunch we provide for you. We take care of your kids, and we just have a great opportunity for us to explain what goes on here at the church, how to make a big place with a lot of services and campuses feel small, where you can truly be better together. And that's coming up the first weekend in March. You can sign up right now at rlc.is/FS. I don't know which one you're going to choose, but I'm telling you to choose one of them. Because we cannot continue to do life alone. We cannot continue to hide behind the excuse that nobody gets me, nobody understands me, I'm better off alone, everybody else is an idiot. When Jesus himself said, I will have compassion and I will give responsibility. If he knew better together is not about us all being the same, but it's about us being with one another, then that's what we should do as well. Next week, we're going to continue talking about this, and we're going to walk through some of the biggest obstacles we have to community, especially when it comes to us understanding how to relate to God. Most of us feel like you can only do that on your own, but what if you could do that together? Make sure that you are with us. I'm going to want you to stand up right now, and I'll close this out with a word of prayer at all of our locations. God, thank you for all that you're doing here, all we get to be a part of, and would you just help us, God? We're a little scared, we're a little nervous about venturing into community with one another because we've just had bad experiences. We've watched this go wrong before. Would you just give us the grace that your son modeled for us and that has had for us and that others have had with us so we could extend that compassion to others. And we pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, as you leave, all cash dropped off at the exits is given to that Easttown church plant. I'll see you in the lobby, and I'll see you next weekend, everybody.